And we're looking good, you'll be in for a fight, and we fight pretty good. Getting goals is our job, and we get goals good. Looking good, we are Carlisle United.
Carlisle United, the team that's on the ball. Carlisle United, the team for one and all. You're looking good, and we're with you all the way. You'll hear us singing every time you play.
Hello everyone and welcome to a slightly different episode of the Brunton Bugle ahead of this weekend's game against Sutton United. Because I'm away on holiday this week, we're not going to have a chance to record a proper episode. So what we've done is we've had an extra long chat with a Sutton United fan. It's Dan, who runs the Gandermonium blog. He's also on social media at Gandermonium. It's about 45 minutes long, the chat we had with him. It's really, really good chat. He tells us all about Sutton United and where they've come from and how they've managed to get themselves in the league. A little bit of the story about the 3G pitch as well, and that being removed, and some of the ex-Carlisle players there. And on top of that, he gives a little bit of guide of things you can do on the match day in terms of where you can go before the game for all the United fans going. So that'll come shortly. But first of all, we're going to review the Scunthorpe United game that me and Dan both sat in my car now because he's coming down to Liverpool tonight. We've both just been to, so we're both going to review it now. Dan, got out of jail there, didn't we? 2-2 draw.
Big time. Absolutely. We didn't start playing until 75 minutes. I was just saying when we were walking up to the car, my mate Andy always says to me around 75 minutes, who do you reckon for man of the match today? And we both said, well, Gibson's had a go, hasn't he? Because there wasn't many of them, was there? And 2 minutes later he scores, and then obviously he puts a cracking cross in for Dickinson's header, but we've got away with one there against a poor team.
They're not a good size Scunthorpe, are they? I mean, they took the lead after 3 minutes. The goal was an absolute shambles, wasn't it, that first goal?
The goal, Norman made a good save off the initial attempt, but the follow-ups, why aren't we just put it out for another corner, a throw-in, you know?
Isn't that half the problem, though? He's not commanding his area in those situations?
Possibly. He doesn't instill confidence, and speaking to folk around me today, they're all of sort of a similar opinion, so would it be harsh if he got dropped? Undecided, but Jensen must be watching thinking, I can do better than this.
Another issue again with him kicking out from the back under pressure as well. I mean, we really don't want to bang on about it because Paul Farman's gone, but we do really miss the ability to play the ball back to a keeper under pressure who can kick it long, and you know it's going in the opposition half every time, don't we?
Yeah, no, we were saying about that comes down to the experience as well, you know. Both Norman and Jensen, they haven't got much experience, and you know, we've got a young goalkeeping coach as well, so it's probably a department. And I know David Holdsworth says we've got the best two young keepers in the country in Breeze and Simons, but at first team level, we're probably undercooked in that position for me.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, I mean, they took the lead early on, and the performance after that we never got a grip of the game. I think the first shot we had was 26 minutes, and Gibson hit it straight at the keeper. Not too bad of effort, but he was the only one who looked live, and the rest of the team just didn't look at it. And Joe Riley's come off. Not 100% whether he's injured or not. It's very hard to tell, but he didn't look happy, did he? He didn't have a great game. It's probably the first time this season you can say, actually, Riley's had a poor game. He's been brilliant for most of the games.
The ironic thing is, he had a poor game, but he was one of the better ones, if that's possible.
I think he wanted to keep Mellish on for his presence of bustling about. And to be fair, Mellish didn't have the worst game in the world. Look, he's John Mellish. He's going to have his moments where he's not at his best, isn't he? And he's struggling to pass the ball a bit. But his nuisance element did come in handy the second half. And I think actually him and Dickinson, we'll touch on him coming on in a minute, they linked up quite well second half, actually. Mellish was winning a lot in the air and Dickinson was picking up the pieces, wasn't he?
Yeah, like I say, second half, it was only sort of the last 15-20 that we actually started using the ball well. Whether that was a bit of be a lesson for Scunthorpe, certainly, because 2-0 up away from home, 15 minutes ago, you shouldn't be losing.
Definitely not.
There was dreams of a Jeff Thorpe-esque comeback from 94 at one point, but no, like we said, we've got out of jail. Two decent goals, I thought.
Yeah.
You know, and Gibson he'll be buzzing because he by far man of the match. You know, he's scored, he's made one, and like I said, Dickinson. I thought Dickinson played quite well when he came on. Yeah. And also a little word for, I thought Brad Young looked quite lively.
Very lively.
He didn't have much of the ball, but he was getting stuck in, and there's no fear in him, is there? He'll battle, you know.
I mean, that's the difference between him and Abrams. When Young came on, Taft knew he was in a game, and the other big lad at the back for them. I mean, both their centre-backs must be 6'5". They're big fellas, right? And Abrahams, he's not the best in the air, and we were launching it up to him every time, and I do feel a bit sorry for him, but at the same time, there's a couple of occasions where I'm thinking, you've got to show more desire to get in front of the centre-back there. There's a couple of times he could have easily got past him, and yeah, he isn't the quickest, Abrahams. I know that. We've all seen that so far, and he's a tidy footballer. He's not going to win much in the air. But then there was other times where he could get the wrong side of the defender there and probably win a free kick or something like that at the very least. The kind of thing Coyote did for fun last season, basically. That's where there's a definite difference, isn't there, I think? And
just on Abraham there, there was a couple of times where he did manage to take the ball down, and he turns, and there's no one in 40 yards of him.
100% agree with you on that.
And you're like, well, what's the lad got to do? You know, he can't just keep hold of it forever, because they'll surround him and take it off him. But
I mean, before we get on to the second half, we've got to note this, that Scunthorpe targeted our left side, didn't they? There's no doubt about that. Not much of their attack came down the right. We know Mellett so far looks reliable and solid. He's going to be a good player for us. Jack Army's a young lad, and we did touch on it, me and Mike, in the podcast episode last week. He's still young, he's still learning, and he's getting targeted a bit now. And you do wonder.
I think it didn't help that Clough started on the left as well, because
you're right,
Clough hasn't got... He's not going to track back.
Yeah.
You know, he's not that sort of player. If you had Dickinson in front of him, you know Dickinson would get up and down, and plus Dickinson's had the experience of playing left back, so he knows what it's about. But no, that's credit to Scunthorpe. They've done their homework, and they've thought if Armour's on the left with Clough in front, we're going to have space, and they are going to double up on Armour, you know. And I don't think Armour was terrible, but he certainly knew he was in a game that first half, because, as you say, they were coming down his side a lot.
Yeah, it was very much a tough learning experience for Armour, I think, this weekend. And what he's got to remember, though, is that was up against a not very good team, and they caused problems for him. So it's probably a little bit of a wake-up call that actually you're going to have to up your game, because, I mean, to be honest with you, if that's Forest Green, they tear us apart, don't they, with that performance, definitely.
Well, to be fair, I think Forest Green are going to tear most teams apart, having won 4-0 at Stevenage this afternoon. But but no, you know, Armour will put that one down to experience, and you know, hopefully he'll put a shift in next week.
So let's move on to the second half then. Fans weren't very happy at half time, a lot of boos, and they couldn't really grumble about that. They were poor. The keeper only had one save to make, and second half they looked a little bit more lively, but it wasn't really until the subs were made, was it? The subs after Dickinson obviously came on towards the end of the first half, that things really started to pick up, didn't they?
Yeah, like I've said it a couple of times, 75th minute seemed to sort of be the key. It's when we actually started playing, and you know, I've already said it, but Scunthorpe they'll be getting bollocked in their dressing room.
They looked a bit knackered though, didn't they? Because they pressed us quite well in the first half. That's the one thing they were actually good at, was harassing us and getting at us. And I remember I said to John McGee, I was stood next to him, and to Greg, I said to them, they're going to tire towards the end of the game. They're definitely going to tire, because they've put quite a lot of effort in Scunthorpe. They're not a good team, but they've worked hard.
Yeah, but no, I was saying lessons learned for our team. It's lessons learned for them as well, because they should be going back home with 3 points. But we're not to complain. You know, we've robbed a point. I think I've just looked at the table. I think we're 13th in the league.
About right, really, isn't it? Yeah.
But it just sort of ties in with, you know, what we've done all season so far. So 13th.
Yeah, I mean,
played 8, scored 9, conceded 9, 10 points.
Bang average, aren't we? Really, that's the issue. Yeah. So obviously the goal. I mean, before the goal, actually, obviously Clough is one of the players who came off, wasn't he? In the end, you got to say, Clough had a really good chance to equalise, to get a goal back. And he got himself a yard to get a shot away in the box. But then for some reason decided, I'm going to try and get a bit closer here. And ended up going down. Debatable whether it was a penalty, but he should be scoring there, shouldn't he?
Yeah, I think he looked a little bit for the penalty. And I noticed he didn't really appeal for it, did he?
No.
I think he knew he'd ballsed up, sort of thing. But I'm going to be in a little bit in his defence, Clough. Like I said to you when we were in the car park afterwards, there was a couple of times in the second half where he played a couple of balls that were what I would call League One balls, where they were just that little bit too cute for our players. But he needs to realise that he's not playing with the standard he's been playing with.
Yeah, he needs to readjust his game. That's otherwise he's going to struggle with us, and then other teams won't take him on based on the fact, he was good at League One level at some point. He'll then be finding himself at National League clubs. So he's got to be careful, really, hasn't he? He's got to readjust his game. It's difficult for him, though, because the start to his season was disrupted, and finding his rhythm again is going to be tough, I think. But the goal, got to say, great finish from Jordan Gibson. Good bit of pressure from Mellor to sort of win the ball back on the edge of the box, having lost it. And then just smashed it through defenders' legs and into the bottom corner. Great finish. And then late on, it looked like we were labouring and we were never really going to get that chance. Where I think Dickinson had a long-range effort with his right foot that deflected just wide. I mean, it's hard to tell from our angle.
Was it Mellish who had the shot that got the corner as well?
I think, Mellish had one
30 yards when it took a deflection.
No, I think that was actually, I'm sure that was Dickinson, that one. I might be wrong, but and then obviously Dickinson had another long range one where he went close, and the goal, bit of pressure again down the right, and Gibson, long ball to the far post, and got to say, an absolutely terrific header from Dickinson.
Brilliant. And good deep cross. I think what Gibson was thinking was whoever gets there will put it back across for, the Russia people to go at, but fair play, what a header.
He hit it back across goal and into the ground, and doesn't really give the keeper much chance, does he? It's
no.
Really good play, and that's the Dickinson we want to see, isn't it? We want to see who's going to be a bit of a goal threat and get forward. And
one thing we haven't really, we seemed to sort of go 4-4-2 after the subs, didn't we? And it was very back to basics, but once we got used to playing like that, that's when we started playing well, And
Alessandro made a difference, and then we've had a feeling that he's probably going to be more of a player coming off the bench a lot this season. But I mean, I've said I'm a bit frustrated by the fact that he's slowing the game down a bit too much at times, and he's keeping the ball a bit too long. But actually, that was perfect today because we were panicking too much. We were basically trying to play quick passes far too much instead of just saying, let's just keep hold of the ball for a minute, calm it down, and build attacks. And that's what Alessandro did, and he linked pretty well with Young, and I've a feeling that they might work quite well together. And I think that team that finished the game is probably the team that should start against Sutton. The only one I'd have a debate about is the keeper, and you think we'd probably stick with him for now, but I do wonder about that.
I think the two decisions you would have to make would be, as you say, keeper, but I think he'd be harsh on Norman. And the other one is who starts as the two or the 1 and 1 up front. He's a creature of habit, Chris Beech, so it wouldn't be a surprise if he started with Clough and Abrahams and then brought Alessandro and Young on. But
if he does that again for another game, your first thing you say is he's making mistakes, and he's got to stop making that mistake. He's got to get his style 11 right. Doesn't
he? Yeah.
Like I said, it looked like Riley was a bit of the sacrificial lamb, and you understand why you want to keep Mellish on because he's got a goal threat and he's got the height as well. But yeah, it's going to be a challenging one, isn't it? I think Sutton. It's I don't know how they got on today, Dan. Did they do all right again, or they?
Sutton. Let me just when it comes up. Where's the results? Sutton got beat 2-0 at Exeter.
I mean, that's a tough one for them, to be fair. It's not an easy one, but it's one way we've got to look at. So, right, let's build on this point and let's get a win.
Yeah, they're up to 18th in the league, but they've played a game less.
Yeah, they've obviously had the COVID issues, haven't they? So yeah, it's going to be a tough one next week. It's one of those ones I think, I hope Beech doesn't come out and sort of bang on about the time wasting at Scunthorpe, because there was a lot of time wasting, but they're a struggling team, of course they're going to do that.
2-0 up away from home, of course you're going to try and time waste. I would hope we would.
Yeah, if we were in their situation, of course you'd hope we would. And I don't want him to be banging on that, and I want him to actually, just for once, just put your hands up and say, got it wrong, I take the blame for that. Players responded well by digging in and getting a result in the end, even though they didn't play well. We've got to be better, though. That's what we want to hear, isn't it?
Yeah.
No doubt about that. Well, I think that sums up the match review, Dan. A good point in the sense of you're happy with that result after playing so badly, but performance-wise, got to be a lot better.
Yeah, I mean, we should be winning games like that, but from 2-0 down at half-time, we'll take the point.
Yeah. Okay, we're going to go for a short break now, and then after the break, we're going to be hearing from Dan from Gandermonium about all things Sutton United. We'll be back in just a sec.
So today we're doing a slightly special, longer sort of chat with an opposition, sort of podcast actually. It's a blog, it's the Gandermonium blog from Sutton United in their first season in the FL, and Dan has kindly given up a bit of time to speak to us today. Dan, thanks very much for giving up your much needed time, I'm sure.
Not a problem.
Let's get straight into it then. So this is the first time we've ever played you, Sutton United. We've never even played you in an FA Cup game or anything like that. And obviously our one season in the conference, I think you might have even been at Isthmian League level by that point, possibly 2004, 2005, I think, around about.
Yeah, we were, oh God, that was probably, that would have been the first season of the new Conference South. So we're technically a conference side, but we were still the division below.
Ah, well, there you go. A lot of our fans probably won't know a huge amount about Sutton United outside of your famous FA Cup wins over Coventry City and Leeds United. Tell us a bit about the club, sort of generally.
Where to start, really? It's basically we're 123 years old, formed in 1898, and we've been a non-league side, that kind of an amateur side, and then a semi-pro team for basically all that time. And we've been one of those non-league sides that's been moderately successful. You know, one of those names that when you bump into people around, barring the Coventry stuff and all the FA Cup things, you tended to find people kind of knew the name.
Yeah.
So, we're always around, but we weren't like an old Enfield or a Wealdstone that were sort of a Woking in the 90s, like really pushing at the top end of the conference. Yeah. Driving to be a football league side. That's never really been our style. The club's always wanted to just be at the top end of the non-league game. It's always accepted at what it was and what it could do, until last year, then things went a bit weird.
Yeah, I mean, it's incredible, isn't it? Because I mean, as you mentioned there, you've been in existence for 123 years, and you've never really been a club that's been challenging for promotion to the league. I mean, third place finished 3 seasons ago was your best ever finish, wasn't it? I think to
absolutely.
That point. Yeah. I mean, to get promoted to the EFL for the first time, it must have been an incredible feeling last season for you as a fan.
It was. It's a bit weird in that I've been watching Sutton since it must be coming up to nearly 40 years now, good 30 odd years, and if you'd have told me as a kid or even a decade ago this will be a football league club by 2021, I'd have laughed in your face. Just because that's never been what the club's been about. But it was weird as well with all the COVID stuff going on. I mean, we literally got into three games we were allowed into last year. There was 2 around just the start of December where they did all that tier 3 stuff. London got lumped into tier 2.
Yeah, we were lucky. We got that tier 2 in Carlisle as well. So we got 5 games last season, thankfully.
We got 2 games like on the Saturday and the Tuesday, and then London tumbled back into tier 3. So that was it. The shutters came down again. The next game we got to do was the last home game of the season against Hartlepool.
That's not a bad one to finish on, is it really?
No, exactly. It was a good day to be back in, but it was it was typical us to go 123 years and then go and have our most legendary season ever in the it will never be topped. And of course, there's a global bloody pandemic on, and no sod can watch any games other than on laptops.
So frustrating, isn't it?
It was odd. I mean, it was just everyone was engaged and really excited about it, but it was also a little bit difficult to kind of feel involved in it at times.
Yeah.
You know, because you couldn't even hang out with your mates and watch it.
Yeah, we found that
on
last
telly.
season. Yeah, I
It
can't.
was, that was the thing. You weren't with the people that you would normally be with. That, you know, seeing a team successful is cool, and it's brilliant, and that's what you live for, watching football teams. But also, if you're not with your mates or the people that you see every week, it takes a little bit away from it. So yeah, it was a wonderful moment beating Hartlepool to win the league, but it was also a little bit bittersweet because you know, all those trips, all those away games that we'd put massive shifts in and won away at places like Stockport and Chesterfield midweek, stuff like that. We weren't there for. We didn't get to see and enjoy. So yeah, it was odd.
Yeah, I know what you mean, because it's not just about the destination, it's about the journey, isn't it? It's about the moments during the season where you think, you know, you get that scrappy 1-0 win away somewhere and you think, this is going to be our season. We didn't deserve that at all, but we know we're on something here. I totally understand what you mean when you're saying from that. It's quite an incredible rise, though, you've had, isn't it, really, over the last few seasons when you got back into the conference for the first time in a while. Where's it come from? It just seems to have come from nowhere.
It's been a while. It's been sort of built up over the last 10, 11 years, probably plus 12 years. It all goes back to like 07, 08. We had our worst season probably ever, certainly since sort of the 50s. We were just garbage. We were dropped out of Conference South. We'd struggled for a few years, and it comes back to us again being an old non-league club. The game had changed, and the club was a bit slow to react to that kind of the changing landscape around us. You know, we weren't able to pay the wages that were being demanded, so we were always missing out on the better players, which always means you're going to end up bottom of the pile. And we had that one season, we won 5 league games all year, and we went down, and it just, everyone was I think everybody realised that it needs to stop now, or we're going to keep going, because we're in that kind of free fall at the moment. And then we got lucky. Paul Doswell took over as manager. He Bruce, our chairman, always said that he interviewed us rather than the other way around. And I think he'd been managing Eastleigh in the same division, and he saw that, you know, we were there being absolute toilet, but there were still 500-600 people in the ground every week.
Yeah.
So he saw there was a bit of, you know, there was genuine kind of passion there for the club. It was just that it wasn't going in the right direction. So he took over. He is, you know, not in a bad way, he's a very demanding guy. He gives you everything, you know, that he can. And he's not a poor man, so he's happy to, if the club needs something, he'll chip in and you pay him back. So that he demanded, you know, more from the club, and I think that was just kind of the wake up call, the shake up that the place needed. The club realised that the world had changed, football had changed even at our level, and we had to kind of try and change our ways to get on board. And then it just kind of lifted off from there. Once we got back into the conference, it was the National League as it is now. Then it was we had a great season, won the Conference South, got back up to the National, kept largely the core of that side, which was a very good team. Had the cup run. We'd been building crowds off the back of cheap season ticket deals and things like that. So the place was just buzzing again. And then we obviously by that point had the 3G pitch, which made us a bit more of a focal point locally. You know, everyone just kind of bought into what we were doing. Everything we did kind of worked for pretty much first time. And so there's a lot of luck involved, but a lot of hard work. And just lots of pieces falling into place on the jigsaw that suddenly, you know, we thought a couple of years ago when we finished third, we thought that's it. We had our chance. We probably should have beat Max for that league title, but we fell away at the end. And we thought, oh, you know, that was our chance. And then Mac took over, and out of nowhere they went on a run last year. And
I'll get on to the point of the big money clubs in the conference in a minute, because that's something I want to ask you about. But I've got to ask you about the 3G pitches you mentioned there. How frustrating was it, the fact that you've had to dig that up this season and put a grass pitch back down?
Yeah, it's we get the thing of like we've complained about it, obviously, or made the point of, look, we have this facility, it earns the club money, we're generating cash from our own facilities, and we're having to sacrifice that to move up into a football league that is full of clubs that are constantly talking about how they're struggling financially. So that it doesn't make logical sense. The club have said publicly the same, but they've also said, look, we knew the rules. By having that pitch, we had to sign guarantees to the National League to say if we were in a position to go up, we'd have to tear it up, because obviously it's not in the EFL rules. Yeah. But yeah, it's there's a lot of people talk about it because it's lost you. I mean, we were making I think it was making about $250,000 a year for the club, in higher fees and stuff like that. But there's also a lot of other losses, like all the local schools used to play their games there.
Yeah.
All our own kids' setups, before the 3G pitch went down, the first year they had the ability to use that for their training, and this is all the sort of juniors from like under 9s right the way up to the youths. That saved our kids' setup $35,000 a year, because they were paying that out to train spread all over southwest London, and also to play games as well. But so they've lost that, so they've had to find that money to find somewhere to train. There's the community edge in that, you had the women's teams were playing there, all the schools were playing there, the walking football, you had girls football, the juniors, all that was just kind of, a lot of it was sort of pulled away from the club. We have the rec out the back, which has pitches on it, but they're grass, so they're out of use for half the winter because they get waterlogged. So it's frustrating that we a lot of the little sort of the cool little things that we built up and has kind of got us here off the goodwill of a lot of people, we've had to kind of get rid of. I mean,
it does seem quite ridiculous, doesn't it, when you watch, obviously, Young Boys against Man United the other night in the Champions League.
Yeah.
They're playing on exactly the same type of pitch, and you're like, well, why is it good enough for the elite European football competition games, but not for the Football League? I mean, I personally, I do prefer a grass pitch, if I'm honest. But I mean, I say that because at Carlisle we're lucky in that we've probably got one of the best pitches in the league and a brilliant groundsman in David Mitchell. But I totally understand why other clubs look at it and say, we need to do it. You look at a club like Newport County, you've had absolute nightmares with their pitch for the last 2 years. And you think, why can't they have a 3G pitch there? That would help them. It would help clubs as well with games called off. So
it's, I mean, I'm old school. I'm nearly 50 now, so I've watched 99% of all my football on grass pitches. But I've watched probably, it must be close to about 200, 300 games now on the 3G that we had it 6-7 years. I didn't really notice much difference. The only difference you noticed was when it was new, there was a slight odour of rubber in the air, and it was just weirdly green the whole season round. That was about it. So yeah, it was and also for clubs of our stature and our size, it was, you didn't have games called off.
Yeah.
And again and we weren't saying that. As well, from the club's perspective, the club weren't saying that this should be allowed, full stop. There has to be an adult conversation about it.
Yeah.
I think that's what bugged most people. That a lot of the Football League look at it and just go, no. And it's kind of, as I say, you've got all these clubs who are struggling and are looking to make, new revenue streams and things like that, and not lose games to weather and all sorts of stuff. And no one seems prepared to just sit down like adults and discuss. Even if they'd said to us, okay, you're allowed it for
2 seasons,
no more than 2 seasons. Because if you go, if we've torn that up, say we go down, we do go straight back to the National League this year. We've spent £500,000 on a grass pitch that we've now got to maintain, and we've lost. We'll get 1 year and a half, 1 year of parachute, then a half parachute. And after that, we've now got a $250,000 hole effectively in our budget. So yeah, I mean, if they, like I say, if they can have an adult conversation about it and say, if you're coming up with one of these pitches if it's a certain standard, so we had the best you could get, the FIFA 2-star, and you've allowed it for 2 years. At the end of that second season, it goes.
Yeah.
Like we get a year's grace on 2,000 seats.
Yeah, and things
Why
like
can't it be the same?
Teams that go from League One to the Championship have 2 seasons to make the ground all-seater. At the moment,
Exactly.
I'm sure that'll change in the future when safe standing comes in.
Yeah, exactly.
Full force, but yeah, it does seem a little bit daft, doesn't it? Really, you think? I
Yeah.
do wonder if there's a bit of a hangover still from some people in the Football League of remember the plastic pitches at QPR and Preston and Luton. The old style ones that aren't the same, basically.
Oh God, yeah. It is like, you know, they're prehistoric, and I mean, and the changes in the technology from when they first kind of started coming into the non-league game to what they are, to even what we had laid was ridiculous. You know, the changes in the technology. It's there's something weird about the surfaces that the league themselves, I don't know, they don't like, because there was obviously a lot of conversation about this the last time we were at this end of at the end of the National League when we finished third, and there was a vote that they had, and it basically was pretty much a deadlocked vote. Most of League Two said yes, a fair few of League One said no, a fair few didn't because they're looking to be in the Championship, and of course all the Championship clubs don't care, it's of no interest to them, so they said no, they don't want that. So you basically had pretty much a 50-50 split, so that was a no. Then they had another vote, I think it was 6 or 8 months later, and then it was a resounding no. So what changed?
Very odd, that, isn't it? Very odd.
So yeah, there's something. It goes a bit. I think there's a bit more to it, but it's something that, like I say, they need to sit down and just talk about it like bloody grown-ups.
Exactly.
You know, it's
right. Well, let's talk then about briefly before we start talking about your manager and your squad. How difficult it is to get out of the conference now. I mean, the fact that you guys have gone up, everyone looks at it thinking it's a miracle, and everyone now looks down from League Two to the National League, and they say, look at the money these clubs are spending. I mean, was it £250,000 Chesterfield played for that lad from Boreham Wood? Stockport are offering, you know, doubling Paddy Madden's wage from Fleetwood allegedly, and the one that most people are going to talk about, you know, Hollywood Wrexham, and you know everyone talks about Paul Mullen going there from Cambridge last season, but we lost our vice captain to them as well, Aaron Hayden, who was a brilliant player for us last season, but basically he was out of contract at this season, and they offered to more than double his wage, and even though we offered him a new deal, his agent was like, don't bother, Wrexham blow you out the water whatever you do. So we had to take the 200 grand they offered it for him basically at that point. What's your thoughts on that? It does seem, it seems like the financial regulations in the National League are a little bit out of control. I know they're trying to bring some in the next couple of years, aren't they? But it does seem like clubs down there just throw money in it, desperate to get out. Do you think maybe it would change if they gave an extra promotion place maybe in the National League?
Honestly, probably not.
No.
Certainly not in the short term. Reason being is that there's just too many former league clubs in the National League that aren't getting. They all come down and think they're going to bounce back pretty much straight away. If not a season.
I was going to say, thank the Lord that we managed to do that one season.
Yeah, you guys got out with the playoffs, didn't you?
Yes, we did against Stevenage. Yeah.
So, but I mean, in the end, and I can totally understand it as a league club. You know, if you've been a Football League member for your entire history, like someone like a Notts County, you know, there they are, the oldest league club in the country, and suddenly they're playing in the 5th tier and playing sides, you know, with comparatively no stature like ours, Boreham Woods, you know, your Wokings, things like that.
It's a shock to the system, isn't it?
Yeah. So they take one look at it and go, "This ain't us. We want out. We need to get out of here." But you know, there's what a lot of, and we always used to jokingly say it to a lot of the sort of fans we meet from these clubs. It's like, well, lads, the reason you're here is because you were shit.
Exactly.
It doesn't matter why you were shit, like Orient with bad owners and things like that. It doesn't matter. On the pitch, you weren't good enough. That's why you're here. We're here because we've earned it. That's the difference in attitude. That's why when you go to clubs like us, to your Boreham Woods, to Solihull's and places like that, that's why they're outworking you and they're turning you over, because you rock up, think, look at the state of this gaff, we're going to win this, and unfortunately that's not. No one gives a crap about how old your club is. No. It's like, oh, hi Notts, your oldest football league club in the world, nice one. Sorry about the turning you over. It's and if anything, that drives clubs like of our size on more. Yeah. We want to beat size like that.
Definitely, and we found that when we went down. We started off the season really well, and then we had a sort of sticky patch, and suddenly, we were losing at home to Forest Green, and this is pre, green money,
Dale Vince, yeah.
Yeah, this is like 2004, 2005 era, and we were losing at Crawley again, another club that didn't have much money at the time. And, and you think, I think we only just scraped a draw against Gravesend and Northfleet as well. And you look and you think, God, this is a wake up call for us. And we went on a brilliant run at the end of the season to get in the playoffs, thankfully, to turn things on. We did have the floods back then as well, but it is a wake up call when you go to places like Tamworth, for instance. I remember going to Tamworth and thinking, "Oh my God, we do have to get out of this league, because I'm not going to want to come here every season." It's one of those attitudes, isn't it?
I mean, the National League is, I'd say, it's probably the hardest division in this country.
Yeah.
Just because you've only got two promotion spots. You've now got a lot of former league clubs who desperately want out. I mean, it's not helped by you've got clubs coming out of League Two, but you also have had clubs like Stockport who fell even further, and they're now on the charge back trying to get out. So, there's a proper bum fight. I mean, when we were top last year, we were looking at that top 7, and it was us at the top, and then you had behind us, you had Torquay, you had Stockport, you had Chesterfield, you had Wrexham, you had Hartlepool, and then you just sit there and laugh, because it's like, well, how are we ahead of all of that lot?
Yeah.
And that's why they want to get out, so they start throwing money at it, and sometimes it works, but whereas before there used to be 1 or 2 sides with serious money and then others who were well funded, now there's about 5 with serious money in there, and it's.
If you go back in the day, don't you? Barnet were the team that always seemed to go up, because they, at National League level, they were a big club. Effectively, they had a bit of money behind them. Whereas
massive non-league or old amateur side.
Now they're really struggling, aren't they? They can't get out. And like you said, the last few seasons, you look at the teams that have won it. Yourselves, Barrow, Macclesfield, and then like this season, Dagenham are flying. It's not easy for those teams. It's going to be interesting to see how they do. Let's get on to Sutton United then now, Dan. Let's talk about your manager, Matt Gray. Not got much experience as a player, but seems to have done a quite incredible job in his short time so far at the club.
Yeah. He was a bit unlucky he could have played a good level. He started at Spurs as a youngster. Started out with guys like Ledley King and all the rest of it. But he by his own admission wasn't quite to that standard, but could have had a decent career, but injuries just robbed him. And I think he was retired by 28, 29. Just his body wouldn't do it. So he moved into coaching, and he's come up the long way round. He's been a number 2. I think he was an assistant pretty much the year he retired. So he's been in management since he finished playing, and he's kind of just worked his way up slowly. And he came in as coach on the coaching staff in Paul Doswell's last year. Took the last couple of games when Dos had decided that he wasn't going to be coming back that's the following season. And then, Dos and Paddy, the 2 guys that were there, they heavily endorsed him for the job to the board. A lot of the players liked him. They liked the way he trained, the way he set things up, the way he did stuff. So the club took a gamble on him as his first job. And in the end, it worked out. He had a bit of a rough start, but, stuck at it, saw it through, and then completely ignored the instructions to keep us in the division.
I mean, his stock must be pretty high now with the job he's done there, really, you'd think, wouldn't you?
Yeah. I wouldn't be surprised if I mean, if now we've got a couple of wins under our belt, we're starting to find our feet a bit more. Just that slight adjustment. There's not a massive difference between the levels, but there are little areas where we needed to sharpen up on, and we're starting to find our feet. So, I wouldn't be amazed if people start talking about him, in regards to other jobs, if we're nicely mid-table around Christmas. It's natural.
So your squad, I think we sort of touched this before, but you seem to have stuck with pretty much the players who got you into the EFL last season, and we saw with Barrow last year that was a little bit of a risk for them, and it didn't quite work out. Whereas with Harrogate, in comparison, it worked out pretty well for them. They settled really well in the EFL. You've already signed 2 players from EFL clubs in the summer, though, haven't you? And one of them was already on loan to you last season, wasn't he? The lad from Millwall, who's a popular player, isn't he, with you guys?
Yeah, Isaac. He's a proper old school bustling forward. He's quick, he's strong, he's direct, and that's suited A, the way we play, and B, also perfect for National League level, because first and foremost you've got to be big, you've got to be organised. You've got to go out there and compete. You can't, no one in that division is going to roll over and die for you, and it's the same in League 2 as we're seeing. But if you can then get teams turning and you've got a little bit of pace going forward in attack, you can cause sides a lot of problems, because teams that are big and organised don't like being run at, don't like pace. So he fitted in, because we had him briefly on loan before the season that got terminated because of COVID. He managed 4 or 5 games and 1 goal, but then the season ended with about 10-12 to go, so he went back to Millwall. And when we got him back for last season, he hit the ground running. He banged in 14 goals and played a huge part in what we did.
Overall, looking at your squad, who would you say the key danger men are? You're pretty happy with the squad for this season?
Yeah. The squad we had last year was, to be fair to Matt, he did say that a lot of the lads there that were the regulars, they deserved the chance.
Yeah.
A lot of them hadn't played Football League football before. Some had. You got guys like Craig Eastman in the middle of the park, former Arsenal guy. He's played Champions League football for them.
Yeah.
He's quality. He should be playing at least the division above where he is now. But he's just happy there. He's got tons of experience. You've got guys like Dean Bezonis, who's been around a bit at that kind of level. But then you've got youngsters like Louis John, who had a little spell with Cambridge a year or 2 back, but never really got a run out. Ben Goodliff, the assistant manager's son, he's been at National League level for a couple of years after leaving Wolves, and he's getting Football League games now, so it's a good mix.
Yeah, Harry Buteman as well. He played a lot of Football League level, hasn't he? I think he's played lots of experience playing the football.
Yeah, he's played League 2, League 1, Peterborough, Northampton, Stevenage, stuff like that. So there's a good mix there. And we picked up a couple of promising kids like Ricky Corbawa, who was at Northampton but didn't really get a go. He's picked guys like him up, but also cherry picked a couple of half decent younger lads from National League level. We've got Joe Kizzy in from Bromley, who was, every time we played them, he was always a solid, consistent performer, good player. And the young lad in midfield, Ali Smith from Altrincham, who's proving to be he's stood in the last couple of games and proven to be a good signing.
I mean, it makes sense for a club like you, doesn't it, to look for players who've done well in the National League, because you could have the best knowledge of those players, really, aren't you? So, let's talk about your 2 ex-Carlisle players in your squad. One of them fairly well remembered by Carlisle fans, one of them less so, I think it's fair to say. Start with the one who's less well known. You mentioned him just there, Dean. Is it Buzanis, or I'm never sure how to pronounce it really, because he never actually played a first team game for us. So.
It's either Buzanis or Buzanis, one of the two. Right. I'm not sure.
Well, let's go with Buzanis. But yeah, Dean Buzanis. He was with us, I think, for 1 season, and I think in fact, he might not have even been the full season. He was a backup keeper. Seems to have rebuilt his career with you guys, though. Seems to be doing really well there.
Yeah, he went back to Oz. I don't know who he played for last over here, but he went back to Oz. And he was playing A-League regularly. But he's, I think it's Steph Catley, is his missus. She signed for Arsenal ladies.
Ah, okay.
And she's an Aussie international, so they signed her. Obviously, full-time football. So she was moving to the UK. So Dino wanted a reasonable standard to play at himself, and luckily, we were easy to reach from where he was living. I think they live in St Albans, so it's dead easy to get down to us. One train if he wants it, the standard was. He could see that the standard was fairly strong. He committed to a 1-year deal and largely was. He's one of those keepers that I think a lot of people still watch him and don't know a massive amount about how good a keeper he is, because last year he had so little to do. You know, the defence in front of him were so solid that, you know, and the problem is for him as well. He made a couple of mistakes for goals, and it just made them all the look worse for him, because everyone's like, "Well, you've had nothing to do, Dino." But he's a solid keeper. He's vocal. The defence trusts him. Is he the best keeper we've ever had? Probably not. But he does a job. He's got experience at this level. He does it for us. So I wouldn't say he's a sort of a cult hero or anything, but he's there.
I've just double checked there. The last club he played for in England was Carl United. Funny enough, he left us to go back to Australia. Let's talk about Richie Bennett now. Then summer signing for you from Stockport, wasn't it? Because he was at Stockport. He then went on loan to Hartlepool, scored 5 in the 3.
Yeah.
Stockport shit their pants, brought him back from their loan spell.
Yeah.
And he then ended up having a bit of a stinker for them in the playoffs, apparently. So it's
he either missed a penalty or missed a sitter. I forget what it was.
Yeah, I think it was it, wasn't it? Done pretty well for you so far, I think, by the looks of things. He's a player for us who we signed him from Barrow and we paid 50 grand for him, and I think things were expected, you know, for him to do well because he'd done so well at Barrow, and he just never ever really settled with us. He never really got a run of games in the team, but he seems to have done okay for you so far.
Yeah, I mean, we'd seen him a couple of times last season, and he was never one of those players you looked at and thought, well, he's bloody awful. But when we picked him up, you know, we knew he had a bit of Football League experience about him, big lad, and to be fair to him, he's a nice footballer. I think his size probably gets him unfairly labelled a little bit as being a target man, or, you know, a big unit who'll hustle and bustle at the front. So, I mean, we've got Omar Bugle who does that and just bashes everyone around, and he's the guy who goes to war for you. Whereas he's a big lad, but he's very good on the ground, nice touch, clever player, can pick a pass, you know, for his partner up front. We saw it a couple of times in pre-season. I think the Stevenage game was the first real time we got to see him properly in action. Just because, you know, most people couldn't get to friendlies, or because most of that, because we didn't have a home friendly, all our friendlies were down in Farnborough, so most people hadn't seen him play really. So, but he seems a nice lad. Had a chat with him after the game on the Stevenage game on Saturday, and he was really pleased to have got the goals and got the win. So he looks to be a decent addition.
Next time you see him, have a chat with him and ask him about his elbow. If you look at it, I think it's elbow. I can't remember if it's on his right or his left arm. He basically broke his elbow, I think, when he was a kid. And instead of having it properly set and put back in or dislocated, something like that, I think the doctor basically turned around and said, it's fine, it'll reset itself. And he never did. So if you look, he's got a little bit that sticks out on his elbow. Genuinely, it's an incredible thing. And it was noticed when he was playing for us because he was wearing one of those Under Armour things. You could see this little bit. So he's a nice lad, Richie. I think there's a brilliant picture. Somewhere.
He's a nice fella.
Yeah, there's a brilliant picture somewhere when he actually did a like one of these school visits or something, and there's a picture of him going down a slide with the biggest smile on his face you've ever seen in your life. It's a thing of art. It's a thing of art. Let's talk then quickly about the the one ex-Sutton player. I think he's the one ex-Sutton player in the Carlisle squad. Jimmy Toure. How's he remembered from his time at Sutton? Because he's a bit of an enigma for us. When he's been on his game, he's an absolute joy to watch and he terrifies defences. When he's not on his game, he's a bit of a waste of a shirt's probably harsh because he does do tracking back and defending, but you're not really getting much benefit from him being in the team. What's your memories of him at Sutton?
What you just said.
Sums it up well then, doesn't it, really?
Yeah, he played again. As I remember, we got him from Fylde. He was either on trial there or was playing for a contract there.
Yeah.
And he played against us in a game up there, and he caused us all no end of problems. And I think he scored one of their goals as well, and we ended up getting a point, but he just ran us ragged all day. And Doz, who was in charge at the time, inquired, and it turned out that he wasn't tied down. He was on a game-by-game deal there. So we offered him a deal to the end of the year, and he came in and he did okay. You could see there's definitely a footballer in there, and he's very skillful. When he's on, he's very direct, very quick. He'll turn any defence inside out. But he's one of those players, on his day, and it's like, yeah, but he doesn't have enough days.
Yeah, definitely.
He did okay for us to start with, but then he got subbed a couple of times, ended up on the bench, and then before you know it, his agent's in the manager's ear whinging about him being on the bench. And yeah, when Doz left at the end of that season, he was under contract to us. We had the option for the next year, but I don't think Matt fancied him because Matt's very big on his character.
Yeah.
His characters, he doesn't want any egos. He doesn't want any dickheads in the dressing room. Anyone he thinks is going to be a problem, he's not interested. So, and we just said to him that we could retain you and demand a fee, but if someone offers you a deal, off you go. And within a week, he'd gone to Hartlepool.
Yeah, it's a weird one for us because he was out of contract at the end of the season, but we had an option on his contract, and we took that option. And he's played the sum total of, I think, about 9 minutes in the league so far this season. It's one of those ones you think, why have we bothered? There's rumours that the clubs were interested in him on deadline day, but the club was supposedly asking for a fee from those clubs. And you think, why? Just let the lad go and play football if you want him. It just doesn't really make sense, that sort of behaviour, does it?
Exactly. Well, if you're not really that interested in using him, or he doesn't particularly fit your plans, then it's a bit pointless at this level to be paying someone's wages when they're going to be sat on their arse doing nothing. Exactly. You may as well just, because that's exactly what it was going to be with us. Matt clearly didn't fancy him, and rather than option it and have whatever his wages were on the bill, and he wasn't doing anything really for them. It's just sorry. Cheers, mate, but on your way.
There you go. Right, so this weekend's game is going to be the first time that United fans are travelling down to Sutton. So what have our fans got to look forward to at Gander Green Lane this weekend? Any tips or places to visit? I mean, I've seen the pictures. I've seen it obviously on TV. As you'd expect, because the level you've come from, it's a basic ground, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah, the away end is a little on the basic side at the moment. There should have been a new stand-in. I don't know if you saw in some of the highlights, there's a gap at the far end of the ground in the corner. There should have been a new stand going, a little seated stand going in there for to get us over the 1,000 mark. And with all the stuff that's going on at the moment, we can't get the steel, so that's not due till I think either end of this month, middle of October, something like that. So we've got a little temporary thing in the corner which looks really tin pot, which we're all delighted about because we look at that and laugh and think non-league decor. But yeah, the away end's a bit. It is what it is. It's a couple of turnstiles, some seats. At least it's covered terracing, so at least if it pisses down, you won't get wet.
We've got terracing tickets, me and my mates, so we'll be all right. But when you mentioned temporary stands there, Gillingham have had a temporary away stand for about 25 years, so don't worry yourselves about that. The least. But
So I mean, Sutton itself is. I don't know how many of us, anyone coming from Carlisle itself, the London fans might know it a bit better. They might have ground hopped or something. But Sutton's just a fairly bog standard, nondescript suburban South London town. Typical pedestrianised high street. There's a few boozers on it. If you're coming into the main Sutton station, the old bank next to the station,
I think that's where we're going. Yeah,
is half decent. They've told the club that they'll accept, away fans. They're happy to have them. There's loads of big screens and stuff on there, and they have all the sport in there. So it's pretty good place for your average travelling fan want to go. O'Neill's is decent on the high street. We've got a Wetherspoons like pretty much every other town on earth. The walk down to the grounds a bit, just through suburban streets really.
Mm-hmm.
If it's actually running, the West Sutton Loop, the train round, is worth doing because it's like a 3-minute train journey over a 15-minute walk. So, but the last 2 home games we've had, that's been closed for. As per every time we have a big, what we class as a big game, so anything like 2,500-3,000 above, that's never worked.
It's typical.
It's always engineering work.
Well, when we went down for our first visit to AFC Wimbledon when they were at Kingstonian a few years ago, and there was no trains running to Kingstonian, I think, that day. So we had a mad dash to get a taxi back to, I think, possibly Wimbledon station it might have even been, to get a taxi back up. And we made our train with 30 seconds to spare. And that was the last train of the day as well. So that would have been a nightmare if we'd missed that. But yeah, no, it sounds pretty good. I think our fans are very much looking forward to it. I mean, we love ticking off a new ground. And as fans, we always love an away trip. We say this on our podcast all the time. Leighton Orient, one of our favourite away trips of the season, because there's loads of decent boozers nearby, and it's a good little trip down. It's one of those games we look forward to. Speaking of sort of following your club, sort of last sort of general question here, mate. What's it been like for you following a club in the EFL for the first time? Because it must be quite a change from going to National League and National League South games.
In some ways, yeah. In some ways, not. I mean, the going to the stadiums and these bigger purpose-built stadiums that have been that way for years, so going to places like Brunton Park and stuff like that. We've done a few of those. We've obviously been to Wrexham. We've been to Tranmere. We've been to Chesterfield. We've been to Orient twice. So. And being segregated all the time at those bigger grounds and having to buy tickets in advance, we've kind of had a little bit of schooling in that. But yeah, it's still good fun because it's as I say, we are, a lot of the guys I go with have been watching us a long time, and you go to grounds like that and the average is like 3,000 to 5,000 fans, and you look at it and just laugh to yourself and think, how have we wound up here? It's just that we're getting to do that pretty much every other week now, as it was to 6-7 times a season in the National League. So yeah, it's good fun. It's the routine hasn't changed much. It's just the landscape. There's like 12 new grounds for most of us. So yeah, we're loving all the new ticks and exploring new towns and new pubs and stuff. So.
But I bet you're not loving that trip back to Barrow again now, though, aren't you? Because that is that's a bad enough trip going from Carlisle, never mind from Sutton.
It's people talk about that, and it's we always used to, I think it's a joke up there as well that anyone who comes up used to make a big deal of it until the locals used to say, "Oh, what do you want, a fucking medal?"
Yeah, it's at the end of the world's longest cul-de-sac. That's what they say. So there you go.
Yeah. So yeah, we've many times. The couple of times we've been up there in the National League, it's like, oh, you boys have had a long day. Oh, don't worry, I've got a couple of medals, mate. It's so yeah. I mean, it'll be interesting actually to go up there and see how Holker Street's changed a little bit. At least actually the away end will have a roof on it now, so we won't get wet. So that's a bonus.
It'd be interesting for us playing. I think about our first competitive game against them with fans for 48 years or something like that when we play them next season. I think we played Workington more recently in a competitive game when we played against them. So we played Workington in the FA Cup in the early 80s. So that tells you all you need to know about the difference there. So I think that pretty much wraps it up. I think we've had a good long chat there. Before we finish, we like to do a little prediction bit in our podcast. So if you want to share what your prediction is going to be for the game, and I'll share you mine as well.
I haven't actually looked too much at the table and form and stuff. too much. Trying to think. I mean, to be honest, we're trying to. I think we're going to be half decent at home this year, so I wouldn't be upset with a draw. But if we can nick a narrow win, 1-0, 2-1, something like that, I'd be happy.
I'm going to go for a 2-2 draw because we are very hit and miss this season. We're struggling to find our form, and it's going to take us a bit of a while to find our feet, I think. But should be interesting either way. Dan, thanks so much for your time. Really appreciate it.
Not a problem. Absolute pleasure.
And looking forward to the trip down south at the weekend.
Yeah, if you need any pub advice, drop us a line and we'll let you know where to go and what's worthwhile.
And people can follow you on social media, can't they? At Gandermonium.
Yeah, drop us a line, DM us on there if you want advice. Yeah, it's mostly just talking bollocks and just plugging our crap blog. But yeah,
fits in well with us then. There you go. Cheers, mate. Thanks very much.
Cheers, mate. Thanks a lot.
So there you have it. That's the chat we had with Dan from the Gandermonium blog. Really big thank you once again to Dan for giving up his time. It was a real joy to sit and talk with him for best part of 45 minutes about all things Sutton United, and I'm sure we're going to have a tough test this weekend when we face them. Thank you again to everyone for downloading the podcast. We always really do appreciate it. As we always say, make sure you subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, whether it's Acast, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, anywhere like that. Subscribe, and if there's an option to give a review as well on those podcast things, please do that as well. We really do appreciate it. In terms of next week, we'll obviously have a regular podcast out again ahead of the game against Forest Green, I believe it is, so we'll no doubt be talking to our old chums from the Heavens Devils podcast out in New York. Always a good to have a catch up with them. And yeah, you can find us on social media as usual, at Brunton Bugle on Twitter, search for Brunton Bugle on Facebook. We're also on the message board, thecumbreaders.net, and on the Be Just and Fear Not Facebook group as well. So until next time, thanks everyone for listening, and up the Blues.